Next thing is on practice management and marketing. Honestly, I think Michael is going to do a better job than I will, but I'm talking more philosophy, not so much practical, because you know, this whole weekend you cannot learn hair restoration in 2 days. I'm sorry to tell you that. But what you can learn is passion. You can learn some inspiration from people that love what they do and get challenged to be better. So what vision means is you got to start with the end in mind. Where do you want to be in a year, 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years, and where do you want to be encapsulates both your personal, your professional life, because you're a human being. All elements, where do you want to be, and how do you figure that out? You can do what's called a hot pen exercise, which is you just sit down and you just write and write and write, let your subconscious dictate where you see yourself. And my favorite question I ask new hires is, where do you see yourself in 1 year, 5 years, and 10 years? It gives me a very good snapshot of how well they're thinking about the future, where they want to be. If they said, I want to be doing something else than working with you, then you know they're probably not going to be a good hire for me. So where do you want to be in 1, 5, or 10 years? And if you think of that, it can be the beginning of your destiny to go down that direction. Otherwise, you're headed in God knows where, right? You have to have an end in mind. And that vision, if you have a passion vision, this course began with a vision of saying, hey, I want to do something different for the industry. And I didn't know I was going to do anything, but of course I hired better people here because they're a lot smarter than I am, and they make me look good. So having a vision of where things can go is so important. The iPhone, I mean, the idea of a phone started with a man's thought. And he says, look, I'm not going to compromise until this is a reality. And that's what vision is. Don't think you can't do it, because you're probably right. And if you think you can do it, you're probably right. You've probably heard that. Don't waste time. I like what Tony Robbins says, is that there's no extra time he calls net, which basically for me is drive time. So my drive time is always fruitful. I don't listen to music unless I got stressed for some crazy patient. But otherwise I will learn languages. I've learned 6 or 7, 8 languages in the last couple of years. Last 4 or 5 years, a few have stuck, other ones I can only say a few basic words, but it's a mental exercise. It's fantastic. I go to countries. I went to Greece last year, learned Greek. Now, of course, now I can't remember a single word, but that's okay. I got to go back and learn it again. And that's just fun. I mean, it's great to learn and learn. I do a thing called Blinkist, which is a short 10-minute summary of books, because oftentimes if you read a book, you go, oh, got to read that book. A year later, if I ask you, what is that book? You're like, I can summarize it in 2 sentences, and then the rest you don't remember, do you? So, yeah, I sometimes listen to 40-hour audiobooks while I'm driving, and sometimes I want to hear a 10-minute summary. Sometimes I want to hear a 10-minute summary of something I read 2 years ago. So there's also InstaRead, and there's all these ones out there that you can get and just listen to them as you drive. Obviously, don't learn a language if you can't concentrate on the road, please. I mean, I have a very great facility of being able to filter this subconsciously, but I don't want anyone dying out there, please. Leadership. When you're at your job, you are leaders, okay? And you know what I say is leaders lead leaders. You don't want people just following. I want to be a leader for you, but I want you to be the next leader for someone else. And there's a difference between management and leadership. I'm a bad manager. I have really good managers in my office, but I know where the big picture is. I know where I got to be in 5 years, in 2 years, in 1 year. And if you're a great manager, go for it. But if you're a bad manager, get someone better. Understand your weaknesses. When you know your weaknesses, that is the start of excellence. Because here's the truth. Your staff know your weaknesses. You may think they don't, but they absolutely do. I declare my weaknesses so they don't think I'm an idiot. So I say, look, this is where I suck at. And they know. All right, it's obvious. And there's a good saying, you join a company, but you leave a manager. And it's absolutely true. So you want to create a culture of excellence. And here is the dirty secret. If you want to start saying, God, that person sucks. This person sucks in my office. They suck because you hired them. And you don't lead well enough. And you need to be at a position where all the culture starts at the very highest level and trickles downward. You cannot say this person, you need to set the example going down. If your ethics, your passion, your culture sucks, it's because of you. All right? It starts with you. And actually, when I started my fellowship with this man, Ed Williams, I told Ed I was a control freak the first day. Of course, I had a very sorry experience by saying that, because I saw this man was not. He led with absolute awesomeness. He is really my mentor. I had a lot of anger issues in my 20s. It took me to 32 to distill the fact that I was crazy. So I had to chill out. And anytime stuff happens in the OR that wasn't that awesome, he doesn't scream. I've never heard him raise a voice. And if you have anger issues, please go see some therapy or go to see Ed Williams or something. Because, mentorship is so awesome. If I can be your mentor, if you can be someone else's mentor, it's great to have that. Vance taught me hair, and last night he was in tears about how this has been a forum for him to give the heart to you guys. And you know what is great? I distilled his culture he put into me to you. And you're hearing his voice through me, okay? And then of course you're hearing his voice as well. And I always say, find a mentor, be a mentor. It's so important to be a mentor out there. So there are no excuses, for bad behavior. And I like what Ed said. He said that if you can't control yourself, you can't control someone else. So chill out, please, all right? Just don't get angry. And these are great books. He has like 30-some books. These are like the core, John Maxwell's books. Know your weaknesses. People don't quit companies, they quit people. It's absolutely true. Everything is based on the inflection of where the passion is, right? And if you guys are great leaders, people are going to want to stay with you. I have people with me for many years because of this. And there's a saying that a 7 will follow an 8, but a 7 will not follow a 6. What does that mean? It doesn't mean just raw intelligence. I hire people that are smarter than I am. It means leadership skills. People will follow a great leader that will set the right culture for them, give them the right environment to thrive. And so this weekend is about setting an environment for you to thrive in the future. And that's the most important thing. As I said, I can't teach you everything in 2 days. It's not possible. These are some great books. The Drive is just a lot to do with that culture, what motivates people, what inspires them. Start with why. The core of this is, why the heck are you here? Do you want to make an extra dollar? Of course, we're business people, right? I mean, we should be thinking about this as a business economical decision. But what Steve Jobs said, look, it is too painful to do something every day if you hate it. All right? Don't get into this career if this is just going to suck for you. All right? Get out of it. If you want to do this, it's going to be painful. Don't expect it not to be. But when it is painful, there's a reason, there's a reward on the back end of that. All right? And here's the thing. It's always somewhat painful if you're trying to grow. There's a good saying, if you're green, you're growing. If you're ripe, you're rotting. All right? And you heard that from Sharon, a similar version of that. As I said, culture is everything. It is the foundation for of what you do in your practice, and it should be. And you're the one that sets it, no one else. Jonathan Haidt, in his book, The Happiness Hypothesis, cites Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi, who's been quoted a million times. He talks about flow. Flow basically is, there's an asymptote toward mastery. You're not going to ever be perfect, but you're going to move toward that mastery. And what this is that tension of loving what you do, like a sports person slam dunking something out there. This is my flow moment for where I am. I am lost in the moment of being in front of you and engaging with you as an audience, as fellow peers, and that's what's so awesome. And instill that into your staff. And I just state the same thing. If hair doesn't make you happy, don't do it. I had a colleague of mine in LA who said, hey, I would love to do facial stuff, but I don't like the patients. No, some days I don't like my patients because some of them are crazy. But most of them are not. Most of them are very, very happy and rewarding people to work with. But if he has that attitude, he's not going to have a good experience. So I told him, do something else. And he has, and he's an incredible thyroid surgeon. Energy. Yes, I have none left. This is almost the end of this whole road. But you can hear it in my voice. I'm strained, I'm tired, I have 17-hour days for the last couple of days, but it's worth it. Learn to say no. I have said no to a lot of projects that are actually quite meaningful, but I just can't do it. I have a new little baby. I'm making decisions based on my family first, because at the end on your deathbed, you're not going to remember if you publish 3 more articles, to be honest with you. But this is important, okay? Whatever you feel that is important to you, whatever that you define it, spiritual, time with your family, writing a new book, doing something out there whatever has meaning for you, find what it is and do it. Jim Collins, the business writer, always talks about not what you take off the table, but what you leave on the table is excellent. So the no is so important, not just the yes. And so where I've learned from being in this group called Entrepreneur Organization, which I know Michael is part of as well, is the stepchild mentality, which is, hey, hair should not be a stepchild to your practice. It should be an equal passion. And that may not happen immediately. It may not have the commensurate level to everything else you do, but it starts with energy and focus. So just don't add it as a thing to do. You have to build a different website. Today that the consumer is more sophisticated, they're not going to just see blah, 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 hair. You're never going to grow your business, okay? That's where I started, and I understood that people now want a hair specialist, and that's important. Education is key. I'm learning this weekend. I already texted a couple things about, I'm doing some product development. I had ideas for Mina's lecture. I'm constantly hearing things. So always be learning, and mastery, as I mentioned before, is an asymptote. You are never going to achieve it. If you've achieved it, that means you have not mastered it. And it changes. I mean, God, if I miss one of the hair meetings, the major hair meetings, I feel as if I'm 8 years behind. I was having lunch with a colleague of mine in San Francisco, talking to her, and she's a dermatologist, and I absolutely realized, I said, you haven't been to a meeting in 4 years, have you? She goes, that's about right. I go, I know, because you're so outdated. My God, let me just tell you the 20 things you should know the last 4 years. So go to meetings, learn. I am still learning. You got to know what your USP is, your unique selling proposition. If you don't know what it is, go figure it out. People have long tail strategies today, which that means is the consumer knows that you specialize in something. Find your niche of what makes you unique. It is not going to be that obvious early on, but it will start to happen. And you got to work your tail off. I'm sorry. There ain't no easy way to do this, all right? If you want the easy road, you can just walk out right now. But you guys are not taking the easy road. You're going through 12-hour days. You're here on Sunday, all right? And that's great. And so I'm going to leave you with this quote from Steve Jobs. You've got to find what you love. Your work is going to fill a large part of your life. And the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking and don't settle.